We are in ancient Athens, and we're trying to invent democracy. Except nobody ever was trying to invent democracy. These Athenian leaders wanted better government for the people. They thought this injustice with debt slavery, with cabbages being stolen, these things are not good for Athens. They wanted better. They respected good virtue, and their decisions brought about a change that impacts the world today in a huge way. I'm Mr. Hull, and this is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where timeless stories reveal truth and wisdom for your journey. This is lesson number 30, Inventing Democracy, and that's a part of your journey. For sure, it's one of the most dramatic stories of ancient Greece, but anywhere in the world, Athens invents democracy. The city-state slowly but surely developed power to the people. It's literally what that Greek word means, demokratia. The demos had fierce struggle and agon. Over time, they felt, maybe you felt this way, when the rules are just stacked against you. It seems like a small group has the authority, the power, and you just feel like it's so frustrating. They're not seeing, they're not doing what ought to be done, what's really right, what's virtuous. And if the Greeks are trying a path that means human flourishing, happiness, the government needs to be the set of rules. It needs to ensure that the path of happiness, the Greeks called it eudaimonia, they would be fair, it'd be justice, that the government would run well, that we could overcome this struggle. It was almost 200 years of struggle to develop this type of government, the government that favors the demos, where every active citizen was a part, self-government. It's a journey that shows how society can use crisis and courage and create a system where they themselves are the government power. It's not a king. It's not a small group of people that are born into the power. So in this lesson today, we've got some big questions to ask. Questions that are still around today. Who to vote for? What laws are good? What's the role of government? This lesson will empower you on how to think and know what to do when it comes to power to the people. So first, let's go to Athens history and let's see what the unjust threats were. Threats to Athens and its society. Then the law code gets written down. Total game changer, and we've seen that other places. And some of the reforms that are getting made shake off the burdens. And finally, Cleisthenes invents democracy, so we will see exactly how that looked in 508 BC. So join us. Come to ancient Athens in the Archaic age. We want to make you an expert philosopher so that with this wisdom, you can think through the role of government, like where we begin. This lesson begins in ancient Athens when the aristocrats, do you know aristocrats are the rule by the best, and they're born into it. So Athens has some older ruling families. The early Athens government was only ruled by the best, the aristocrats, the old ruling families who held the power, who got the best jobs. And you think of, like a king, they sort of had roles like this, but even from the beginning, there wasn't just one absolute king ruler. They did have laws and practices, but it wasn't written down. These laws were just oral tradition, respected and protected by the ruling special class, the aristocratic people. And we saw that element of religious sacrifice and this priest king, the Basileus. The Basileus would have the blood sacrifice, the religious practice, the authority for the people. And he was one of the city leaders called an archon. There were several people helping to run. There wasn't just one person doing all the work like Egypt. The pharaoh would be the ruler, priest, and god, but that's not really the case. Any government you look at, you've got to see there are a lot of different powerful people doing the actual work. Different archons in Athens was how this all started. And I like the job of agoranomos. The agora is the open area, the marketplace. They had someone making sure that the market worked well, was fair, had rules, had structure. The choragos, a festival sponsor, kind of like the word chorus, for the shows, the festivals. Now, why do they have festivals? Why are there shows? Think back to the lesson on games. What did the games do for people? There was a religious component, but did they bring the people together, the demos? The people were united by the games and the festivals. The demarchos, demos, deme, the people leader. So they even had like your local village leader, the demarchos. So I think you see different jobs, these guys doing different things, also that the society, the city, Athens runs well. And they would say, we like our jobs and we want to keep them. We want to do well. We want everyone to do a happy life in Athens. And that's important. But in these early years, it was still just ruled by the best. Only the oldest aristocratic families had these jobs. So I have a question for you. What could possibly go wrong with this? Type it in the chat. Just add a comment right now. It's like a prediction for what happens to this style of government. Aristocratic families, they're responsible, they're trading jobs, they're archons. So what are the threats and the problems to this? What could possibly go wrong? Since everyone wants a good Athens, these threats are problems we got to take head on. And we're noticing some of these problems like cabbage thieves. This is out of control. Thievery. So what do you do when oral tradition, laws are just handed down and you trust the archons to minister justice? What do you do? If they don't take care of this problem, who will? The cabbage thief problem or way worse. So one of the threats, one of the problems with oral laws and an aristocratic rule is that justice may not be balanced. It may not be distributed equally to the people that really need it. And you may take matters into your own hands. A blood feud. Have you heard of this before? Have you heard of family feuds? These can go on for generations to seek revenge. And you take law into your own hands. Another problem, I mean, look at this poor family. Look, this is a farming family. They don't actually own the land because the aristocrat, the ruling class owns the land, and they have to give 5/6 of their crops as kind of a payment. But as there were more kids, and then generations go on, more grandkids, you have some bad farming years. You have too many cabbage thieves. That's a problem. What do? When you're running low on money, well, I notice the Horos stone in this family's yard. This Greek family has debt, slavery. The Horos is the mark. They're allowed to use themselves as collateral in case they can't pay these debts. And if their farm is struggling, they need money. These are threats to Athenian society. And there's a lot of pressure being put on the ruling class, the aristocrats. They need to fix it. And so what do? You get a very strong archon. We're going to hire a new guy who's going to write law down. Segment 2 is written law. This lesson is about the road to democracy. Identify those threats, deal with them, and written law is a huge part of democracy. But here's how it started out. We needed clear laws about cabbage thieves. So we hired this guy. Aristocrats, the ruling class, hires a guy named Draco. Draco is hired to write down the laws. People look a little stressed out right now because do you know what he does to cabbage thieves. Not him, it's the law now. He's writing down laws, and this is the first in Athenian society, and it's not him. The law code says how to deal with situations. It's a framework. The law is a framework, and the way we're going to do cabbage thief justice is no longer blood feuds. And Draco fixes this. His framework, his law code that is written down like a constitution, like the first constitution for Athens, it provides a framework for justice, and it drastically improves everything. Cabbage thieves not a problem anymore, because you know what their punishment is? Death penalty. Death penalty for all these crimes, stealing apples and murder, of course. And people said, you know, you're pretty harsh, Draco. Draco, you are Draconian. Have you heard that word before? To describe someone as very harsh or something as just extreme, sometimes people call it Draconian. And it's because of this guy, because he wanted cabbage thieves to have a strong deterrent. Written law codes with strong deterrent. Does this remind you of Hammurabi's Code? Hammurabi's Code from 1200 years ago was written law with strong deterrence, similar to this. You may say it's a bit excessive, but it fixes the problem of blood feuds and taking law and matters into your own hands. And cabbages are no longer being stolen. It drastically improved law and order in ancient Athens. So we're on the road to democracy. Did Draco help? Was he too draconian? That's a debate. You know, you're in this lesson to learn how to think and what to do in situations that are overly harsh. How do you balance it out? But we're going to start with written law, and we're going to know that Draco helped put us on a path to democracy in the 7th century, in the 600s BC. Now, we're not done there, because as you can see, he's not helping with some of the other basic elements of what democracy delivers, with balanced power, checks and balances, broader participation. So we're not going to get that yet. But thanks to Draco, we've at least got fewer cabbage thieves, and we have a system of justice. We have a framework of written law. This would be a special time to do a deep dive. You've had lessons on Hammurabi's written law code and the history of written law and the importance of it and how it may connect to your story in the United States of America or whatever country you're from. But Hammurabi's law code has so many interesting, strong deterrents, and it has a lot else. Draco is most famous for strong deterrence, and people consider that he was over the top. But if you go to classicalkingdoms.com with the free resources that are available and the deep dive research downloads, you've got materials to read where you can go into far greater depth at classicalkingdoms.com, and there's a full course experience available for you there. So next is Solon. His claim to fame is shaking off the burdens. He's holding that law code. He is enacting new policies, new laws that will help shake off these burdens of the past. You know, what got us here were the old ruling families, the aristocrats, but they wanted a better Athens. And so over time, we call it the journey to democracy, a pathway to improve government. It goes slowly. The Areopagus were the old archons, and they try to protect the old ways. And the Areopagus will continue. But what Solon is going to start to do is broaden out how many people are participating in the governments. That's the first thing that he's going to do to shake off the burdens, to help the power balance. Let's not just have the old class, the aristocrats being so influential. Let's try to balance the power. So this assembly has been around for a while, the Council of 400. It'll become the Council of 500 later. We'll call it the Bully. The Bully is a special power check and a balance because of the people that are invited in are kind of on a rotation. They're not there because of their family heritage, like how they were born. They're not there because of any sort of job that they got hired to do. They are a rotation. Now think for a second. What would it be like if you were called to rotate in and to perform some duties some leadership duties, and you were told you're only going to be doing it for a year or for a period of time. There's a time limit, and everybody kind of has this rotation that comes through. And what would that mean to all the people involved in the rotation? We're going to check a box of wider participation, more people involved in leadership in the government and how to run things. So what's the impact of that? Think for a second. How is this helping democracy to have a wider participation, more people involved? And they even used this machine, the sortition. The sortition assigned the random people. It's not really random because you're selected from a group. They wanted to divide the tribes up equally, so they tried to have distribution of the different tribes of Athens, and this machine would keep track of whose rotation was next. And so the benefits of this, wider participation, more people, more perspectives of the things that matter to Athens, because everybody wants a better Athens. So wider participation, that's kind of a power check and a balance. Now, it's not very wide. You might have noticed that you didn't see some of the wives of these men in the picture. Are the women being rotated into some of these jobs? Well, we're going to see that Athens is kind of notorious for relying on the men of the family, the husbands of the family, to represent the family, to represent the wives. Athens is one of the more extreme cases where women had some cultural restrictions as to when and where they could go out. And that's why people get worked up about Sparta sometimes, because the women seem to have so much authority in that extreme kind of harsh upbringing for the kids, but the mothers, the women, Sparta is much different. So the men, the husbands, need to represent, they need to participate and represent the needs of the family. Solon is improving a lot of policies to widen the participation. And here's a new one, democracy, from the Greek word time, which means like values and honor and wealth. The democracy now is going to set up classes based on their wealth. And you say, oh, Mr. Hall, that's what we're trying to get away from. The aristocrats owning all the lands. Like, no, wait, it's merit. Because every time they measure your crops, you get another chance to level up your social status. Think about that. How would that help? When you are amongst the other farmers and they are measuring your bushels, it's a little more than a bushel in ancient Greece, this basket. If you could come up with 500 of these, look at that. That's not that much. The medimnoi, 500 medimnoi. And they even list out the 4 different social statuses that Solon laid out here. And if you could get 500 bushels, little more than you were in the top class, and you would be involved the most in the government. Now, why does that help? And why is that a part of the journey to democracy? We're following written law. It's the same for everybody. Everybody could farm harder. You could work harder and get more grain, get 500 bushels. It's a power balance because it's going to be more people involved, wider participation, and it's going to balance the old ways of doing things, the Areopagus, those old archons. And now we're going to balance it with people that are successful. Sometimes you hear the word meritocracy. So if you can get 500 bushels and have it verified, then you have just leveled up your social status and political status. It's really, I should have said political status, because now your unit of value in the government has increased. It's wider participation. Now here's the big one that everyone is probably waiting to see. What happened to that poor family with the hungry grandkids and great-grandkids, and they had to use themselves as collateral? Debt slavery was an institution in Athens, and people had to sometimes use it. Well, Solon is going to end it. Not just end the dreaded horos. No longer will your farms be marked, and no longer is debt slavery even an option. So it took us a long time, but that injustice, the problem with slavery or using your family as property, that's over. Not to return ever again for Athens. So make note of slavery as an institution. And Solon says it's not what we want. It doesn't deliver a good Athens. It doesn't build a good society. So Solon not only eliminates debt slavery, he says, you can't do it anymore from here, but we're also going to redistribute and forgive a lot of debts. It made some of the aristocrats mad, but in the balance, the aristocrats needed guys like this to guard the city. Where did the troops come from? The farms. So all the people, had a sense of duty to serve in the military, but you also had to be rich enough to pay for a shield, a helmet. That's a lot of bronze. It's really quite expensive. And so poor farmers in debt, turning your own people into slaves, it's not good for society. It didn't help things. And Solon fixes it. Solon was a poet, befitting of Athens, interested in so many of the arts, but his poem talks about he freed the black earth by eliminating the Horos and leveling this playing field, doing away with debt slavery. And in the road to democracy, this journey included even the lowest class people, the people that produced the least amount of bushels of grain, still had a role in the government. It was just a vote in the jury seats, but we're seeing a value of merit, wider participation, balances of power, a little more, and built on written law. Solon did a lot in his timocratic approach to bring Athens closer on the journey to democracy. But there's a problem with tyrants. All these good policies, it sounded good, but they set up the opportunity for a guy like this, Pisistratus. He comes in there and he becomes a tyrant. What is a tyrant? A tyrant, in the original definition, which is right here, right now, this is the original tyrant, Pisistratus. It's because he rises to power in an unconventional, unconstitutional, it's not part of the written law code way. That's a tyrant. You're thinking like, oh, I've heard way worse about what a tyrant is, because usually you hear the word tyrant and you jump straight to you-know-who. Do you know who? People say Kim Jong-un. People say Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Chairman Mao. They use the word tyrant in reference to all these people. I'm equipping you to think the original tyrant is right here. So let's see what he did. Why is Pisistratus called a tyrant? It looks like he's busy. It looks like the people are happy to see him. There's not a genocidal, fascist, communist kind of program going on here. That's true. And that's an important distinction here, as we understand that Pisistratus was popular with the hill people, the farmers in the hill, off in the distance, praising the fact that law and order has worked for them, that their land and debt, things are balanced out. And so Pisistratus is able to kind of swoop in there and bring more people behind him so that he can take power. Now, if he's going to take power and not be a tyrant, he would have to become Archon the normal way. But Pisistratus is shrewd. He's a military commander. He knew how to exploit the situation. He positioned himself as a champion of the hill people. These poor rural farmers, men of the hill. This is sometimes called a rise of the populist farmers that support a seizure of power. They want their guy to have the power. So what does Pisistratus do? We're looking at it right now. He inflicts wounds on himself. That's the story, that he appeared to be wounded by enemies. And so the government was, we'll give you a bodyguard. And he gets on a chariot and he hires this tall woman to dress up like Athena. Now, why? Stop for a second. Why would you do that? And can you think of anything in today's society? And what is similar to things that happen today? You're riding on a chariot, you're wounded by your enemies, and Athena is supporting you, riding next to you. This is a real scene. And Pisistratus uses these bodyguards to get him to the top of the Acropolis to show his authority with Athena. And that's going to make him a tyrant forever. And you can't change that. He took power in unconventional ways. And what does he do with his power? Now, that's the interesting thing. As he develops his idea of how to help, do you remember the games? Do you remember the importance of the games to bring an identity to everybody? So here's this tyrant, and he's bringing more people a sense of joy and happiness about Athens. Oftentimes I ask my kids, is tyrant a bad word? We have bad images of it, and Pisistratus could have seized power the legal way to be Archon, but with the people's support and with the identity of the Greeks, not just all the Greeks, but the Athenian Greeks, they love Pisistratus. If Pisistratus is popular with the people, he's going to deliver things that the people like. Games, festivals. This is the beginning of the Pan-Athenaea, along the Pan-Athenaic way. Celebrating festivals to the gods, to Athena. This is something that people can rally around. We already see the steps towards democracy are not being disrupted by this guy, except the part about the written law giving him his job as Archon. You take the good with the bad, right? But people are included in this government. The assembly is still operational. The bully is the Council of 400, the Citizens Assembly, the way more citizens are serving, like in the jury, and they have a vote. Oh, and here's another good one. Let's start building a massive temple to Zeus. How does that bring people along? This is called the Temple to Olympian Zeus. It is so huge. Pisistratus started constructing this, and it looks like he never finished it. Well, he didn't. You'll have to watch for this in a future lesson because it's so massive. It does not get finished anytime soon, but he started it. And the point is he's involving the people. He's exciting the people. It's a populist support of Pisistratus. And he uses the assemblies properly. So he doesn't kick out the assemblies. I can tell you who did, like Adolf Hitler or Kim Jong-un doesn't use assemblies to influence. They seize the power and use it. And oftentimes that's what we think is a tyrant. But Pisistratus is using the assemblies. Like this, have you ever heard of ostracize? The Greeks came up with this system of ostrakon. We would vote to kick people out. In fact, Solon even demonstrated in a virtuous way that he would leave town for 10 years and come back because he didn't want to keep on pushing his ideas in if they weren't good. Ostracism is a way to push people out of the city for a while, a time limit, sometimes up to 10 years. You could be ostracized from the city and brought back, and it can be a punishment. It can be just a time out. It's a very interesting system that I don't know what the parallel is. If you can think of a parallel, throw that in the chat right now too, to ostracize people. But Pisistratus has so much authority and power. His son Hippias takes over after Pisistratus dies. But Hipparchus is his brother and gets killed off in like a lovers' quarrel. There's a problem with Hipparchus, his brother. And so Hippias kind of, freaks out about the power that he's taking over for his father. Do we have a problem here? Do the written laws say that if an Archon dies, his son takes over power when he dies? Is that the system that we were replacing? It's a system called primogeniture, when your firstborn son takes over power for a king, or a queen sometimes has this authority inherited because they were born into it. Cleopatra would be one of our famous ones from these classical ages. She was born into it. Her father identified her that she would be queen. Why does Hippias get to be Archon? Just because he's the son of Pisistratus? Is that the system that we're working on now? Could anything go wrong with that? What did you say originally? For the problems that you could possibly have, is having your son Hippias take over power for you one of them? Cleisthenes thinks it is. Cleisthenes is from a strong family. He is a strong leader, and he identifies the way the government should be. And he says Hippias is not it. Cleisthenes uses his political power and influence to get Hippias out of the way. Did you think of anybody that you could relate to similar to Pisistratus? Someone that maybe has coached you or taught you or has done a really good job as a strong leader and really seemed like somebody on your side. And you could clearly look at their efforts and you were proud of them. You thought, man, that coach, that teacher really put effort and did a lot, and it benefited more than just me, benefited a lot of people. I feel good about being associated with that leader, and you would speak highly. Well, that's not Hippias. Hippias became so despotic. He became a despot ruler, like so kind of mean and strong with his ruling. When his brother was killed in this assassination, Hippias had to go. And in order to understand what to do next, we need help. And where do you go for help when you need better understanding? So with Hippias, such a cruel ruler now and a tyrant, and how did he even get that job? And now his brother's dead. Later on, people are going to celebrate the tyrannicides, the way Harmodius killed Hipparchus. There's lack of support. The people are losing their support for this tyranny started by Pisistratus. So where do you go to gain some understanding for how to fix this? And Cleisthenes knows this map. I see Athens, and could you go down to Sparta and talk to them? You could, because remember, Sparta is really tough and strong with their military. But could you also go to Delphi and talk to them? Because isn't Delphi good as a place for understanding? Cleisthenes, the strong leader from an important family, he goes to Delphi. The family of Cleisthenes had been largely pushed out of power after this tyranny, Pisistratus and Hippias. Delphi has a lot of earthquakes, and the Temple of Apollo was damaged. What should we do about this? With those two facts, do you know what is coming next? Because Cleisthenes and his family arrange to have the temple fixed up. The Apollo temple that is the center of understanding everything, they're going to dump all this money into Delphi. And what do you call that? Now what? Oh, somebody said it was a bribe. So you think Cleisthenes is going to bribe Delphi? Why? What are they going to do? Because the Spartan king Cleomenes is coming to Delphi also to do the usual, what do you do at Delphi? You need this special message, or you just need to gain understanding. And so King Cleomenes of Sparta was told by the Pythia, or actually it would be the priests, the Apollo priests, who are very well versed in foreign relations. They know everything that's going on. They understand better than everybody else. And so King Cleomenes is told that he needs to first free Athens from Hippias. Did Cleisthenes arrange for that message? Spartan King Cleomenes will take his military, will go to Athens, and they do it. They push Hippias out of power and kick him across the Aegean Sea, where he's going to have to find a job working with some of maybe the colonies in the Ionian area, but that's controlled by the Persians. Is Hippias going to end up with a job with the Persians because he was kicked out of Greece, kicked out of Athens by Sparta, because Cleisthenes bribed Delphi? Delphi told the king of Sparta to go and do all this. Well, that's what happens. And Hippias is essentially ostracized. He's pushed out. He is no longer going to be a part of Athens. And we might want to remember that it is going to come up again. So Cleisthenes pretty much has made it. He has one other little power struggle in dealing with the Spartans, but he overcomes that. And by 508 BC, he is known as the inventor of democracy. All this help he's had along the way, all of these struggles that have been overcome, the Agon, Cleisthenes is the architect of broadening and checking more of these boxes that we could say are necessary for a good democracy. Written law code that you can trust, power checks and balances. With Cleisthenes, the Bully, the Council of 500 now, he upped it from 400 to 500. They're the ones that write the laws and have different committees that work them out. And the power balance now is the very broad ecclesia, the calling out of all the demos. Anyone who's a citizen now comes to vote on the laws that the Bully had come up with. So wider participation, granted, it's not a lot of segments of the population, but it's the widest that we've ever seen. And that's why it's called a direct democracy. The widest participation of all the demos are actually the ones voting on laws, new laws that get written, or voting to take away old laws. And the role of serving in your jury, serving in different parts of the government, that is a virtue. It's the sense of duty. And on a day that the assembly was to meet, it was viewed as so irresponsible if you didn't participate because you had the opportunity. And do you know what word they invented for the people that had the chance to vote and participate in government, to be in this democracy, demokratia, the Greek word for power to the demos, power to the people, power to the people. Do you know what word they invented for those who had the opportunity to participate but didn't? The Greek word, idiot. The word idiot refers to people that could help participate in their government and make a better society, but choose not to. Cleisthenes is credited with giving the world the first ever direct democracy. His goal was to prevent tyranny, end aristocratic factionalism. And his solution was using his political genius, and it was political genius. And it has shattered kind of that establishment aristocratic power from that point forward. All the tribes, all the demos, the Athenians were involved now in their Athenian government. It's very similar to what our founding fathers in the United States of America wanted to set up, with a law code, trusted constitution, practices, and power to the people. For the Athenians, this meant that people of the sea, the fishing people, and the people of the hills, the farmers, they had to come together and deliberate and find common ground and to vote on the laws that were right for the Athenians. And this built civic identity because Cleisthenes made these demos a basic political unit, one man, one vote. And it was just the men. They represented their families, they represented their wives, but every citizen had to register as an identified member of the demos. And it shifted the loyalty people would show to their family. Remember blood feuds? Long gone. Now they're loyal to the polis, to the city-state. They're loyal to Athens because they've got a vested interest. They got skin in the game. The institutions of popular rule that Cleisthenes had built, and you participate in this government, you feel excellent, virtuous. Erate is the Greek word for that, virtuous excellence, because you are participating, you are serving, you are doing your duty. And this is a principle of equal law, because every person is equally represented in the assembly and with an opportunity to serve in the other aspects of the government. This long, difficult journey of Athens to Democratia, it's a powerful story of political struggle, social struggle. Athens was not planning to invent democracy. This story went on for over 150 years, if not longer. But because of the virtue of the people and their desire to improve, to have better justice, improved the right power for the government, everything that we have covered in this lesson, from Draco's laws to Solon's reforms, and the effects of the tyranny of Pisistratus and Hippias, led to Cleisthenes inventing democracy, a gift to the world. And the lessons of Athens' journey to self-government inspire your own understanding of civic virtue and the balance of justice, and how to think and what to do in situations like what Athens has gone through. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that really matters in all of history, and that includes your history. Some classical truth for your journey, because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.